I wasn't always the strong old woman you see today, sitting in this rocking chair with my silver hair pinned neatly and my knitting basket at my feet. No, my child, there was a time when I was soft in all the wrong places, soft-hearted, soft-spoken, soft enough to be molded by the hands of a man who didn't deserve even my shadow. His name was Rashid, and when I first met him, I was foolish enough to think his smile could swallow the whole world. He had a way of talking, smooth, gentle, dripping promises I didn't know were empty. I married him with dreams of a peaceful life, a small home, and a family built on love. What I got, however, was a cage painted in the colors of hope. In the early years, I worked long shifts at the textile mill while he chased business opportunities with men I never trusted. He said he was doing it for our future, but every month our savings grew smaller, and his excuses grew longer. Still I stayed. Still I believed. Every woman believes for a while. Until she doesn't. I cooked for him, washed his clothes, ironed the shirts he wore to impress other people while he forgot to look at me. His nights stretched later and later into the darkness. Sometimes he stumbled home drunk, sometimes he didn't come at all. And every morning he would say, "You worry too much. I'm doing it for us." For us. Strange how a liar uses that word as a shield. Then came the years when he stopped pretending to care. My tea was too sweet. My cooking was too bland. My questions too many. My silence too loud. Every word from his mouth was dipped in irritation. And every day I felt myself shrinking, becoming someone smaller than the girl I once was. But I didn't show him the cracks forming in my heart. I learned to hide them well. That is something life teaches you. When to speak, and when to stay still and listen. I listened very carefully, especially in those last months before he left. I noticed the secret phone calls, the withdrawals from our bank account, the sudden bursts of anger when I asked about money. I noticed it all. And I decided to stop being soft. I didn't confront him. Oh no, confrontation only makes a selfish man careful. Instead, I became quiet. I played the role of the naive, dependent wife he believed me to be. And behind the curtain of that silence, I made my move. A move that would change everything. But that part, my dear, will come too soon. The day he left was strangely peaceful. He stood in the doorway with his bag slung over his shoulder, arrogance written across his face. He expected tears, please heartbreak. He expected the fragile woman he had shaped over years of neglect. Instead, I smiled. He frowned, confused. "You'll regret this," he said. But I only nodded politely, as if he had told me it might rain later. He walked out, believing he had won. If only he knew, the bank account was already in my name. My freedom had begun before his footsteps even reached the gate. Now listen carefully, my child, because this part of my story is not about revenge. It is about awakening. A woman doesn't suddenly become strong in one night. Strength grows quietly, like a seed under dark soil, long before anyone sees its first leaf. My strength began growing the first time I found our savings book nearly empty and Rashid shrugged as if money evaporated like mist. At first, I believed him. Then I pretended to believe him. And then finally, I stopped believing altogether. I started noticing patterns. Every time he left for one of his meetings, a withdrawal followed. Every time he came home with a new shirt, or after a night of gambling with his so-called friends, a small portion of our savings disappeared. One afternoon, while cleaning the shelf, I found a receipt for a hotel booking, one that certainly did not include my name. That was the moment something inside me clicked into place. A quiet, steady voice whispered, "Protect yourself." But protecting yourself as a woman back then was not as simple as walking into a bank and demanding change. Men signed the papers, men handled accounts, men decided how much freedom their wives deserved. Rashid believed I knew nothing about finances. And oh, how well I played into that foolish assumption. "Sign here," he used to say when we opened accounts, never bothering to explain. He thought my hand only knew how to knead dough and mend torn seams. He didn't know my mind was sharper than any needle in my sewing box. So I waited. I observed. And I learned. I befriended a bank clerk, a sweet young woman named Samina, who visited our neighborhood every Thursday to help the women open small savings accounts. She taught me quietly, discreetly, never once asking why I needed to know so much. Maybe she already understood. Women understand each other's silences better than words. With her help, I opened a separate account, one only I could access. I shifted money slowly, carefully, like a bird hiding seeds for winter. Every rupee I earned from stitching clothes, every little bonus, every household saving, I moved it into that account. Over time, I shifted the rest of the money too, gradually draining the account Rashid believed he controlled. He never noticed. Men like him rarely look in the places they assume a woman is too ignorant to touch. By the time he stormed out of the house, declaring he was done with this marriage, I had secured every single rupee. My hands trembled when I walked into the bank the next morning, but my heart was steady. Samina greeted me with a smile that told me she understood more than she said. "You did the right thing," she whispered as she handed me the updated balance. The number on that paper felt like the first breath after drowning. It wasn't fortune. It was freedom. Freedom from begging, from dependence, from the fear of tomorrow. When Rashid slammed the door behind him that day, he thought he had left me empty. He didn't know I had already filled a new life with possibilities, written neatly under my own name. And that, my child, was the first quiet victory of my revenge. Life has a strange sense of humor, my child. It rarely delivers justice loudly. Sometimes it works in whispers, soft, steady, patient. And months after Rashid walked out of my life, justice began knocking at my door in the shape of the very man who once believed I couldn't breathe without him. It happened on a humid August afternoon. I still remember the heat pressing against the windows, the ceiling fan turning lazily above me as I sipped a cup of chai I had brewed just for myself. For the first time in years, it tasted peaceful. I had taken small steps toward rebuilding my life, mending clothes for neighbors, saving quietly, waking up without fear of his footsteps or his cold voice. Then came the knock. At first, I thought it was a customer. But when I opened the door, there he stood, Rashid. His hair uncombed, shirt wrinkled, eyes swollen like someone who hadn't slept properly in weeks. There was no arrogance left in him. He looked like a man who had been chewed up and spit out by his own choices. He tried to smile. "Assalamu alaikum," he said softly, like someone greeting a stranger. I stepped aside only a little, just enough to block the doorway, just enough to show him he was not welcome inside. "Walaikum assalam," I replied, my voice calm, steady, untouched by the storm he expected. For a moment he simply stared, probably trying to understand how I could look so peaceful without him. Then he began speaking. He told me his business partners had betrayed him, that he had lost all his investments, that he had nowhere to go. Every word dripped with desperation and self-pity. But not once did he say sorry for the years he had drained my life like a cracked bucket. I think we should try again," he said finally. "I made mistakes. But we can fix this. Let me come home." Home. Such a small word to describe such a big lie. I looked at him, standing there with the same hands that once pointed at me in anger. The same mouth that had spoken nothing but criticism and disappointment. And in that moment, I realized something. I felt nothing. No anger, no atrit, no sadness. Just clarity. "This house," I said quietly, "it isn't mine anymore." He blinked, confused. "I moved," I continued. "I bought a new place." His brows knitted. "With what money?" There it was, the truth striking him harder than any slap could have. "My money," I said, letting the two simple words hang in the air like a sentence passed. His face twisted in disbelief. He sputtered something about us, about trust, about partnership. But I didn't argue. I didn't explain. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't owe him anything, not even my anger. I simply stepped back, placed my hand on the door, and said the sentence he never expected from the woman he once controlled. "You cannot come in." And then, with the gentlest motion, I closed the door. On the other side, I heard him bang, beg, curse, plead. I heard frustration. I heard panic. But what I didn't hear, what he expected to hear, was me crying. Because I no longer lived in a world where he had the power to break me. That silence. That was my sweetest revenge. After the door closed behind Rashid that day, my child, I felt something I had not felt in years. Lightness. Not joy, not triumph, not even revenge. Just a peaceful, steady lightness. like my soul had finally exhaled after being held underwater for too long. From that moment on, I made a promise to myself. My life would no longer be built on someone else's choices. It would be built on my own. The first thing I did was find a home. A small one. Simple. But mine. The walls were cracked, the garden overgrown, but when I stepped inside, it felt like stepping into a space where no insult had been thrown, no tears had ever fallen, no voice had been raised in anger. A clean beginning. I painted the walls myself, soft yellow, the color of warm mornings and hope. I planted jasmine in the front yard because I always loved their scent, even when Rashid said flowers were unnecessary expenses. Every evening, I watered them with a patience I never had the chance to give myself before. With the money I had saved, I bought a sewing machine brand new, the first thing I had purchased for myself in years. I placed it by the window where the afternoon sun gently touched the floor. That corner became my workplace, my sanctuary, my little kingdom. Word spread quickly in the neighborhood. Baji stitches beautifully. Her hands are steady. She listens without judging. Soon, women began visiting, not just for tailoring, but for tea, for advice, for the kind of comfort only another woman can provide. They sat on my veranda, drinking chai, sharing their troubles, laughing, crying, healing. One of them once told me, "This house feels peaceful." She didn't know it was built brick by brick with freedom. My business grew slowly at first, then steadily. I never became rich, but I became stable. And stability, oh, that is a kind of wealth many never understand. Every time I balanced my accounts, signed a receipt, or placed money in my own bank, I felt that seed of strength inside me grow into a full, strong tree. Rashid came again once or twice, each time more desperate than before. He pretended to have changed, pretended to be a man transformed by suffering. But I could see through him the way one sees through dirty glass. I told him, kindly but firmly, that I wished him peace but would not allow him to disturb mine. He stopped coming after that. Years passed. My hair turned silver, my hands grew older, but my heart grew younger. I learned to laugh again, to cook for myself without obligation, to sleep without fear, to wake without dread. I learned that solitude is not loneliness. It is the luxury of choosing your own company. And now, as I sit here telling you my story, I want you to remember something, my child. Revenge is not destroying someone else's life. Revenge is building your own life so beautifully that the one who hurt you can never enter it again. When he thought I would cry, I smiled. Not because he left, but because I finally returned to myself. That, my dear, was my sweetest victory.